Welcome to the American Small Business League podcast. I am Bruce Tataris, and with me is the president and founder of the American Small Business League, Lloyd Chapman. How are you today?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're all doing good. Talk to me, Lloyd, about what you know we want to talk about today.
Well, Donald Trump, as every Republican president has been since Reagan, is viciously, violently anti-small business. It's documentable. So I asked Perplexity the other day, when did Lloyd Chapman first predict Donald Trump would attempt to slash the SBA budget um, and defund federal small business programs? Lloyd Chapman first publicly predicted that Donald Trump would try to effectively defund federal small business programs and move to close or merge the SBA in a statement issued January 18th, 2017. Right? On June 2017, the day before Trump's inauguration, Chapman issued a statement to the American Small Business League warning that within 90 days there would be litigation introduced to Congress to close the SBA by folding to the Department of Commerce, blah, blah, blah. So I've been predicting Trump's going to do this, by the way, for years. So Reagan tried to close the SBA. Bush tried to close the SBA. Two Republican senators tried to close it. And Trump's going to try to close it. Here's the thing that these MAGA people and the Trump supporters don't understand. In America, 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses. They create 98% of all net new jobs. Most Americans either own or work in a small business. They're responsible for over 90% of U.S. exports. Um, and our economy is based upon small businesses, not Fortune 500 firms. So if you're watching the news, you would think, oh, the economy is based upon Fortune 500 firms. No, it's small businesses. Fortune 500 firms haven't created one net new job, by the way, in over 40 years. But again, nobody knows this because the Fortune 500 firms are the advertisers on national media, and they don't want people to know this, right? So the Small Business Act that the SBA administers, ready? The single largest economic stimulus program for the American people in history. The single largest economic stimulus program for the American people in history. Nobody knows that, right?
Right.
The Small Business Act mandates in 2025 that a minimum of 23% of all federal contracts and subcontracts shall go to small businesses. That would be around 160 billion a year into the middle class economy, but it's not happening. It's not happening. To tell you the truth, the SBA was probably shut down uh, largely during the Bush administration, Bush Jr. He cut the SBA budget staff by 50%. And this is all motivated by the Pentagon, by the way. The Pentagon hates small business programs. If you're an American citizen, your biggest enemy is not Iran, North Korea, Al Qaeda. It's the Pentagon. They're your worst enemy. They're the ones that are pushing to get us into endless wars, right? And you can Google it. Google 35 trillion missing at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Now, the Pentagon can't quite put their fingers on $35 trillion. That's an amount equal to the national debt. And they've never passed an audit. So here in America, our biggest enemy is the Pentagon. They're going to bankrupt our nation. They're going to bring about a complete economic collapse with their anti-small business, pro-war programs, where they're spending all of our money attacking people that have never attacked us, and trying to dismantle the economic programs that have made America such a strong economy. But the crazy thing is, everything I'm saying is documentable, and yet this is nowhere in the national media. You can't. It's nowhere out there, which is
Yeah.
very frustrating. But so
Yeah.
Trump says he's going to defund, I think, 12 different SBA programs, cut the budget by 30%. The SBA budget, by the way, when he took office, was the lowest in history. How about this? The budget for the SBA was bigger when Reagan was elected than it is today. It's the only agency in Washington that has a smaller budget in 2025 than it did in 1980. But he's going to close all the women's business centers. He's going to close veterans business centers. He's trying to shut down all federal programs to help what is it, 37 million small businesses where most Americans work, and nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's insane. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's
what did you find about him shutting down the women's business centers?
the following. To what extent, I asked Perplexity.ai, to what extent, if any, has funding to women business centers been shrunk or eliminated versus proposals to do such? Because sometimes you just read he has proposed it, sometimes, oh, they haven't shrunk yet. Short answer, as of late 2025, women's business centers are still funded and operating, but they are under serious threat from Trump administration proposals and from delays in releasing already approved money. It says actual funding has not yet been formally eliminated nationwide, but is being squeezed in practice. And depending how you ask a question, you get different answers, as you well know.
Yeah.
The other question I asked was this, and it's a little different. What are all the small business and women small business and minority small business centers and programs shrunk or closed by the 2025 Trump administration? Sometimes I have to ask
Yeah.
perplexity questions like it's an idiot, and it's
Yeah.
taking every syllable literally, and you can't give it an inch wiggle room to go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
Short answer: public reporting so far shows proposed or ongoing cuts and shutdowns, but there are no single definitive up-to-date list of all effective centers and programs. This is a four-page answer, by the way. It's going to be tough to go through,
Yeah. Don't worry about
but
it. He's
yeah,
he's defunding 12 different programs.
there you go.
And the most important one is women business centers. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? What is your goal? To save money? 35 trillion is missing at the Pentagon. He
Right.
campaigned on uncovering fraud and corruption at the Pentagon and cutting the budget. Doge did not audit the Pentagon, and they've increased the budget, the opposite of what he said he would do, right? By the way, Trump has pretty much done the opposite of what he said he would do, right? He said, I think he said on day one prices would come down. The opposite happened. Prices are going through the roof. I saw on TV today, I think what they call consumer confidence is at a record low. He said I'll be the most amazing jobs president God ever created. The lowest jobs numbers in history are what we're having right now. So right now, in November of 2025, it's the lowest jobs numbers in history. Trump is going to collapse our economy. It's just insane. It's just insane. Here's something that I did. I was having lunch in a Mexican restaurant in Indian Wells, California. I said, um, who has been the most vocal opponent over the last 20 years of efforts to close the Small Business Administration or cut the agency's budget? The most consistently vocal and sustained opponent of efforts to close the Small Business Administration or cut its budget over the last 20 years has been Lloyd Chapman, founder and president of the American Small Business League. Lloyd Chapman has led ASBL in a long-running public and media campaign specifically warning that multiple administrations and budget cutters have tried to close or fold the Small Business Administration into larger departments, and he has frequently denounced these moves in interviews, press releases, and opinion pieces. He has repeatedly framed proposed SBA eliminations or mergers as a direct threat to small business access to federal contracts and capital, positioning ASBL's core mission as stopping those efforts and defending the agency's budget independence. Right? I've been doing this for, gosh, 35 something years.
Yeah.
And, we do this on a lot of our podcasts, but I'm at my home office. The wall is covered in stories about me trying to end fraud in federal small business programs. Here, I'll just grab one. San Francisco Chronicle. Let's classify, what's it say? Giant firms as small businesses. And that was 2023. So what was that? 22 years ago?
Well, you said
2 years
2023.
ago. I was just a baby back then.
Lloyd,
Uh,
clarify, what year was that? I'm sorry. You said 2023?
2003.
Thank you.
What did I
2003.
say? Yeah, 2003. So that was 22 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. And by the way, that was I started earlier than that, but I'll have to say that I'm shocked after all these years that there's an unrelenting pressure in our government to end the only economic stimulus program for the middle class and for the American people, the Small Business Act.
Yeah.
And they shut down the programs where most of the jobs are created.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know what? You would think that he's closing women's business centers. By the way, let's throw this out there. This is part of our Don't Cheat Women project. Trump's giving over 95% of all federal spending to companies owned by men. So women are half the population. They pay their taxes. They own 43% of all the businesses. And Trump is giving over 95% of all federal spending to companies owned by men. And he's trying to shut down the women business centers. Is that amazing or what? Why does any female human ever voted for Donald Trump? He's trying to shut down the centers for veteran-owned small businesses. This guy's an anti-small business Nazi. He's the most anti-small business president in history. And remember, in my opinion, if you're anti-small business, you're anti-American. In a country where 99.9% of the businesses are small businesses, and you're trying to dismantle a small number of federal programs to help those companies, I'm gonna have to say you're anti-American, right?
Also, he was president in 2020 when the COVID lockdown shuttered a huge percentage of our
Millions.
small businesses
Yeah,
and
millions
gave,
of small
I
businesses went out
think,
of business.
yeah, and it gave, I think, $5 trillion mostly aid to the hugest corporations. And
Yeah.
that has continued with the investment in AI into these gigantic corporations that they sometimes list how AI could help small businesses do some things, but for the most part, it's going to make them unnecessary by many viewpoints.
Well, again, um, by the way, I like the fact that Trump has quit releasing numbers you could use to determine that the economy is collapsing. Is that what's that tell you? That's like some kids say, "Oh, I lost my report card."
Mm.
Right?
Yeah,
All right,
bad
I
day to
lost it,
great.
right? Yeah. Back a few months ago, when they released the jobs report that was the worst jobs numbers in history, he fired the woman that was over that agency. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's going to help. Right?
yeah,
But yeah, anytime a
yeah.
president is trying to withhold government data that you can use to show that the economy is collapsing, yeah, we're in trouble. But and of course, to blow my own horn, I predicted this would happen a year ago. So a year ago, I predicted that we're going to have the horrible jobs numbers because Trump cut contracts to small businesses, specifically minority-owned small businesses, by 10%.
Yeah.
We've discussed
Yeah.
this ad nauseum. 15 years ago, the Senate Small Business Committee did a report. Says for every 1% contracts of small business go up, it creates 100,000 net new jobs, right? Um, so I'm sure the opposite is true. Every 1% you take away, you lose 100,000 jobs. So 10%, that's a million jobs. And the jobs numbers reflect that. They
That's right.
reflect that, right?
Yeah.
Um, if he's successful, which he probably will be, uh, since there's no real organization in America that represents the voice of small business except the American Small Business League, you want to challenge that? Show me. Show me. Show me someone that's been on TV more than I have, issued more press releases, more interviews, opposing any effort to close the SBA or cut its budget. Show me somebody. You can't. It's me, right? For almost 40 years now. So yeah, there isn't really an organization in America that lobbies for small business, represents small business. There's not one. Um, any organization that claims, that they do that, show me your guys on TV. Show me your guys on TV fighting Senator Burr when he tried to propose legislation to roll the SBA into the Commerce Department. That's like combining the Ku Klux Klan and the NAACP, right? But yeah, if Trump is successful again, which I think he will be, I believe this time next year we're going to have a serious recession. Um, and I would say that America, uh, we've already got the worst jobs numbers in history. It's going to be even worse. It's going to be even worse. And it's sort of, it's math. It's like two and two is four, right?
Mm.
When small businesses create like 98% of the net new jobs, and the Small Business Act administered by the SBA is the largest economic stimulus program in history, and you cut that, it's going to be devastating. It's going to be
Mhm.
devastating. And again, it's just absolutely insane that people in Congress aren't just objecting to this. I doubt if most of them know, to tell you the truth. I doubt if most of them even know about it.
That makes sense. What have you seen lately about the impact of the tariffs? I thought I saw headlines recently that, oh, they're stabilizing and business is getting a little easier, but I don't buy that. I don't because I know that the impacts really haven't
Not
kicked in.
true.
Right. And small
You know,
businesses are holding back on a bunch of things because the
yeah,
cost of a lot of things went up.
yeah. The cost of everything goes up. It makes sense, if you're going to import, you know, glasses from China and you've been paying, a dollar for them, and now there's a tariff, and now it's 100, it's a dollar 50, right? You were selling for $2 and making a dollar. Now you can sell for $2, just going to make 50 cents, right? Or else the
Ouch.
public has to pay, more. So yeah, tariffs, anything there's a tariff on, the price on that is going to go up.
Mhm.
There's no other way. Someone's got to pay that, and it gets passed on to the consumer. That's why prices of everything are up. You can't dispute that. You can't go, oh, prices are down. No, they're not down.
Right.
So Trump's economic policies are just absolutely insane. You know that? Um, a year ago, as you know, I was getting dropped from conservative podcasts because I was saying stuff like this about Trump. The funny thing is now a lot of those people who didn't want me on their show are saying the same things I said a year ago. All right, you remember that? These
Yeah.
conservative podcasts said, "No, we want Lloyd on there because we looked at social media. He's criticizing President Trump." Now those people are criticizing President Trump, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You tell me. I believe, in the 3 months prior to his election, I believe Candace Owen was pro-Trump. Uh, Tucker Carlson was pro-Trump, and Joe Rogan is pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump now, right?
And what's
Um,
their major complaint against him?
where do you want to start?
Hmm.
You know, Mainly the economy's tanking.
Okay.
You know, uh, he was going to make America great again. It's not great. It's the opposite of that. It's worse. So the economy's worse. Prices are higher. There's fewer jobs. I can't think of any economic indicator that looks good. Can you? What looks better now?
I
I can't.
see headlines that the stock market's robust, or it had
You
been.
know what? That might be true because those are his buddies, right?
Well,
But let's just say
that's the
in the
major.
stock market.
That's a logical conclusion one can only draw when they hear what you have to say, which is we are a small business nation. They distract us with how these billionaires are doing and how public companies are doing, and oh,
No,
the stock market. Hey, you know, that's not small business. That's not where
let's talk.
most
Yeah,
everybody, yeah,
yeah. Well, most Americans don't work for companies on the New York Stock Exchange, right? Most Americans work for small businesses,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I believe small businesses employ uh, the majority of people in the private sector workforce. But here's something about the stock market. When you've got a president that is pro big business, wants to cut their taxes, cut regulation, and kill small businesses, yeah, they're going to do great. They're happy. Yeah, let's grow, right? Here's the bad news. Fortune 500 firms haven't created one job, not one net new job in over 40 years. I saw Amazon's going to lay off, hundreds of thousands of people and put robots in the factories, right?
Yeah.
Um, the Government Accountability Office did a study, I think it was last year, that said 34% of the largest, most profitable companies in America pay zero federal income tax. Let me say that again. 34% of the largest, most successful companies in America pay zero federal income tax. All right, who's picking up the slack?
Right.
Small businesses, American people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know what? Now I'm scaring myself. I think I've got most of my money in the stock market, right? Uh, I don't see how we can not have a complete economic collapse. We're 37 trillion in debt. The national debt goes up $1 trillion every 90 days. Um, we don't have a balanced budget. We're giving billions to foreign countries. So while, you know, child poverty, I think, is at a record high level,
Yeah.
you've got a record number of homeless veterans, American families. How about this? Look it up, folks. Google military families don't have enough food. I think they call it, what do they call it? There's a term for it. They don't have enough food. Military families don't have enough food. And we're giving billions to foreign countries, right? So the families of soldiers don't have enough food. And look it up.
Yeah.
By the way, here's another statistic. Trump cut the VA budget and staff dramatically, right?
Hmm.
In 2025, more soldiers commit suicide than died in combat. By the way, I think it's 4 times as many. Look it up. And he's cutting the budget for the VA, cutting the budget and staffing at a time when 4 times as many soldiers are killing themselves as died in combat. Nobody knows. Nobody knows, right?
Or if
It's
those
great.
headlines appear, they seem not to be discussed the next day. There doesn't seem to be, follow up, follow on investigations. Or if they are, they come and go quick. They're under the radar. They might be performative only. They might
Well,
last a few days, and then those Congress people go back to campaigning or calling donors.
yeah. My opinion is that the Pentagon has massive control over the media. I guess a year ago, I started doing research. My X account went from up to, I think I was getting close to 3 million views a day. That was my top, right? I'm getting, I would say from real people, none. So in 18 months, I've gone from at a minimum 1 million views a day to none. And I did some research. I went to Perplexity and said, is it true that there are multiple AI censorship programs active on social media accounts that were established by the Pentagon? And it goes, yes. Civil Sanctuary and WiseNext and many more. So there are multiple AI censorship programs on social media.
Hmm.
I was posting a lot about auditing the Pentagon, and that's when my account got shut down, right?
Yep.
But yeah, the Pentagon has massive control over the media.
So,
Um,
what should everyone watching and listening do?
Go buy a gun and ammunition, and go on Amazon and buy some of that freeze-dried food that comes in those 5-gallon buckets. I'd buy 2 or 3 of them if I were you, right? I think it's going to get bad. By the way, that's what I did. That's exactly what I did, right? I think we're going to have, by the way, how can we not have an economic collapse? How can we not have an economic collapse? When Bill Clinton left office, no wars, no terrorist attacks. The economy was roaring. He left office with a surplus. And now we're 37 trillion in debt. It goes up $1 trillion every 100 days, right?
Yep.
We're giving billions to foreign countries while American families don't have enough food. When those hurricanes hit the South, they didn't have any money. FEMA and the SBA were out of money.
Yeah.
We gave $176 billion to Ukraine, and there was no money. Remember, what was it, Lahaina?
Yeah.
They got nothing. The hurricane victims, I think, got $700, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. The government of the United States of America is not taking care of the American people. They're taking care of foreign governments and the Pentagon and Fortune 500 firms and big pharma and screw the American people, right? I think that's going to hit the wall. It's going to hit the wall, I think. I think it's going to hit the wall this time next year. I say by the 2026 elections, people are just going to be on the verge of civil war. They're going to be so mad. By the way, I saw something about an hour ago. 41 members of the House are not going to even run for re-election. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, I believe, was the tip of the iceberg. There's supposed to be an avalanche of resignations in the Republicans because they know they're going to lose control of the House. It's now predicted, anybody that knows about that the Republicans will lose control of the House. I say they're going to lose control of both houses of Congress. I say they're going to lose control of House and the Senate. I saw another report the other day. Trump's poll numbers are, in the toilet. Um, so, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting now to, just we're promoting our Don't Cheat Women project very aggressively. We encourage everybody to go to that site, don'tcheatwomen.com, in terms of what people can do, that people can and should. Can you imagine, because if enough people did this, it would make a huge difference.
Well, you know what?
Tried and true, contact your representatives and
Uh,
senators.
uh, we've discussed this. Very few people will see our podcast. The Pentagon has hired some of the largest reputation management firms in the world to make sure that no one sees me or hears my voice. You can't email me, you can't talk to me, you can't call me, you can't communicate to me in any way. Um,
Let's test that. I'm going to display our phone number during this podcast, and for the audio listeners, it's 415-404-7733. Again, 415-404-7733. Call and talk to our staff. Leave a voicemail that says, "I saw your podcast." It would help.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um, we've discussed this repeatedly. About 10 years ago, I noticed that the phone quit ringing in the office. The phone would ring about 50 times a day. At least once a week, somebody in Congress would want me to sponsor their bill or endorse their bill. Uh, I used to do interviews sometimes from 6 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, all day long interviews, right? Small business owners would call us up, with their problems. Our phone was busy, right? It went from ringing 50 times a day. It hasn't rung 50 times in the last year. So I hired the Mintz Group out of New York, Jim Mintz, and they did an investigation. They came back and said, "We've discovered a large international firm has compromised all your communications, and we can't tell who it is." Right? So yeah, the ASBL. You and I've talked about this. How many podcasts have you done since you joined us? What do you
Dozens,
think?
if not more than, yeah, it could be. It's approaching huge numbers now because I'm doing,
50, 60?
oh yeah, more than that probably because, it's been nine
Yeah,
months or so and I'm doing sometimes three, four, five a week,
yeah.
15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
So tell the people how many phone calls you've gotten from people say, "Hey, I saw you in this podcast. I'd love to go to my post." Tell them how many calls like that you've received.
Zero. We got
Right.
three complaints because of one congresswoman got into a
Yeah.
firestorm, and on her homepage she had our podcast interview where we interviewed her. But
Yeah.
so that's more or less, two or
How many
three.
emails have you gotten from people saying, "I saw you on this podcast. I'd love to have you come on our show and talk about the Don't You Win project"? How many emails have you gotten since you started? Zero, right?
Yeah, there's a memory of like one, but
Yeah.
it's so fuzzy it
Um,
could be zero.
when I would do podcasts back before the government, what do you call that, canceled me,
Hmm.
um, off of any media appearance, I would get 5 or 6 phone calls. If I put out a press release, I would get 5 or 6 phone calls to go on, national television like that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But we're working hard to circumvent that. And even with these
You know what?
realities, we people have to know that one thing that's like kind of breaking through the resistance is our outreach to the 1,600, 1,700 candidates who are running for Congress.
Yeah.
We're getting a high volume of "this is amazing, tell me more." I look at their websites, I vet and screen them for our podcast. I'm starting to, I've interviewed 20 of them now, 25 of them now. There's 1,700 to, and I've also had a number of phone calls where I didn't have time to interview them. I said, "Call me," and I get on the phone. I've talked like, yeah, like three or four of those, but at length, and they say, "This is amazing. I'm definitely gonna, support this, talk about this." There's a hunger and a need for the truth. People get thrilled, Lloyd, with the information that you share and that you share through the ASBL and that I'm helping to share, which are all those basic facts and figures that you shared at the top, which are the foundational facts that when
Yeah.
people think about, go to sleep about, they'll really realize what a distraction the mainstream news is because it's all about the Fortune 500 companies. And this is where the rubber hits the road. And that's why, again, go to don'tcheatwomen.com, read the great things that would happen when simply enough people contact their Congress people and senators and say, "Raise the goal for women owned small businesses from 5 to 15%, and watchdog the SBA and make sure that all the small business contracts that they say are going to small businesses are really going to real small businesses." And we're not quitting.
Yeah.
We're doing this 5 days a week, business hours and more. And there's this, it's so tangible. It would be so helpful and beneficial when enough people say, "I've got to make that my civic duty thing that I do in my life instead of just watch TV, drink beer, and flip on my phone."
Here's what I predict. Republicans are definitely going to lose control of the House. That means Trump's going to be a lame duck president. He'll have 2 years to crash the economy and give away trillions of dollars in our tax dollars while I believe his net worth has doubled since he was elected, right? He's got the king of Saudi Arabia in his Oval Office. He's doing business in Saudi Arabia, right? By the way, when he leaves and Congress is controlled by Democrats, they're going to come down on him like a ton of bricks, right? They're going to make the stuff in the past look like nothing. To tell you the truth, I worked on Trump's campaign, right? I was working on Bobby Kennedy's campaign when he joined Trump. I'm on the Trump campaign, right? And I really enjoyed, by the way, connecting with all the Trump people on social media. Remember that? It
Yeah.
was like it felt super patriotic for the Kennedy people, the Trump people to come together, and become friends, and it was great. I loved it. When Trump was elected, by the way, I've got a video that's on my account. I was dancing in the kitchen with my dog, right? I would hold my dog dance and celebrating Trump got elected, right? I never dreamed that he would do this stuff. It was beyond my ability to comprehend it would be this bad, right? So 2026, the Republicans will lose control of the House. That's pretty much guaranteed, and a lot of Republicans know that. That's why they're not running. I would say by the midterms, it'll set a record for new members of Congress. And because of what we're doing, I believe it's going to be the most pro small business Congress in history because we're going to talk to everybody running for Congress and educate them. 99.9% of all U.S. firms are small businesses. Fortune 500 firms haven't created one net new job since 1980, and 34% pay no taxes. By the way, you don't have to be an economics PhD to figure this out. Uh, the government is giving, based on all the data that I've obtained from 40 years of suing the government under the Freedom of Information Act, talking to all the top experts, I would say at a minimum, probably to be super conservative, I'll say 90%. I personally think it's 97%, but I'll say 90. 90% of all federal spending goes to the top 1/10 of 1% of all companies in America that don't create jobs, don't create any jobs, and 34% pay no taxes. If you want to bankrupt America, that's the fastest way to do it. Take our tax dollars and give them to companies that don't create jobs and don't pay taxes, and then try to shut down programs for the 99.9% of all small business of all businesses that do create jobs, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
And once someone is convinced about this and they start taking some action for it, Lloyd, we have to, that's where the hope lies. We have to give people hope, and we have to say like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And I'm glad we've created a path on the don'tcheatwomen.com site. There's literally a page called What You Can Do. It's got a letter, pretty brief,
uh,
that summarizes these arguments that people can swipe, and it's got the links.
yep.
Find your senators, find your representative. Here's how to contact the White House. Customize the letter, with your name, et cetera, and say, hey, dear recipient, please do this for these reasons. It's all there.
I'm very uplifted, by the way, by Candace Owens, Joe Rogan, and Tucker Carlson. Right, they're telling the truth, and I spend 8 hours a day on social media. It's exploding. It's exploding. The truth is coming out about so many things, right? And
How much of that is uproar about Epstein, the Epstein files, and all that
a
nonsense?
lot of it,
Yeah, and that is a great thread to poke and to pull and to demand accountability for.
yeah. I would say the Epstein file thing. Gosh, anybody that doesn't think Trump was knew what he was doing, was involved in it, you're delusional or you're stupid, right? His best friend is a convicted sex trafficker, all right? And he knew it. He knew it. How can you not know it, right?
Right. And the
And
latest stuff about his
well,
intelligence.
well, I want to get into that, but
Well, fine.
I'll stay focused on.
Yes.
I think we're looking at a significant economic downturn at a minimum. When I say an economic downturn, that's like being very positive about that. I think it could be economic collapse. Again, how can you not have economic collapse? By the way, I believe for the first time in history, they're doing business overseas, not with US dollars. I can't think who I saw that on some podcast, but used to be all business with oil was done in US dollars. They're not doing that anymore, right?
Right.
I
There's a lot of economics along those lines with those the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, I think, and it fluctuates faster than I can keep track of. But you're absolutely right in warning about it, a collapse because of the bubbles and and the debt. It's uh, it's urgent that folks get up to speed about it. Not only what we say about it in this particular very actionable issue, the small business contracts, don'tcheatwomen.com, ASBL.com, but other sources. I mentioned a lot of interviews. Catherine Austin Fitz, her organization, Solari.com, Alex Craner at Trends Compass. Lloyd, you intuitively, from your decades of experience, know what these people, you know, day by day, they follow. Like, look at these trends, look at these moves, and we may have to, really hold on to our boots.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. Well, women. Trump is giving over 95% of all federal contracts to companies owned by men, and now he's trying to defund the women business centers. So the pennies that you're getting, he's going to take that away from you. Veterans, all these, make America great again, veteran guys, he's shutting down the veterans business centers. 4 times as many veterans are committing suicides out in combat. Military families don't have enough food. That's the guy you voted for. That's not making America great again. When military families don't have enough food, and when 4 times as many veterans are committing suicide as died in combat, and when Trump's trying to close the centers to help veteran-owned small businesses, yeah, that's not going to make America great again. You guys need to get that through your heads, right? So women, veterans, Trump's not your boy. He's not your guy. He's the opposite. He's your worst enemy, right?
We've gone a little past our target, but
All
I'm
right,
happy
let's
to.
wrap it up.
All righty, Lloyd Chapman. It is
Have
a
I
couple
been
days
passionate
before.
enough?
I'm sorry.
Have I been passionate enough?
Well, I call it inspiring, Lloyd, because when enough people, I just saw a quote by Ben Franklin: "Justice will prevail when those who are not affected are as outraged as those who are." So maybe we're not passionate enough. All
Uh,
right,
we'll see.
we'll see.
Thanks a lot, Bruce.
You're welcome. It's a couple days before Thanksgiving. This will post a couple days after Thanksgiving, and we are never giving up. I will promise you that. So thanks everybody for watching and listening today.